Hello and thanks for joining us. Today we're talking about great literature that's joyous and with a happy ending with the Pulitzer Prize-winning novelist Andrew Sean Greer. Hello Sean, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Now your prize-winning and best-selling 2017 book Less is one of the great comedic novels of the past 10 years. You're back with its sequel, Less is Lost, that's out in France, about the hapless middle-aged gay writer Arthur Less. We're pleasure to have you back on the show. A lot has happened since you were here in 2019.
Yes.
How have the last 5 years been for you?
I have to say, a pandemic is great for novelists because we have no distractions anymore. So I wrote the book, you know. I finished my research. I think the last time I saw you, I had gone on an RV trip across the United States, and we had a different president.
You did. Well, you said you wrote both the Less books as a reaction to Trump winning the election in 2016. We're about to see a Trump-Biden rematch. How are you feeling about it?
I feel just sick to my stomach. I hope to not be in the country again, because it's awful to wake up every morning and think, what's happened? And when I live in Europe, I have at least 6 hours before the newspapers publish anything of peace of mind.
Do you have any predictions?
I predict Trump will win, and I do that to force myself to do something to stop it.
Okay, and what would that be?
Write postcards. It doesn't feel very effective.
Okay, well, Less is Lost, as you said, is your pandemic novel that your agent told you not to write. Apparently there's a sort of unwritten law that suggests you shouldn't follow up a hit novel with a sequel. How did it come about?
Well, it came about because I was trying to write something else. I was trying to write a kind of Don Quixote, American Don Quixote novel, which Sir Salman Rushdie wrote before me, by the way. I'm glad I didn't finish that one. And what I was writing was terrible, and then I realized I had these wonderful characters who I had left in the last book that I could just use if I didn't care what anyone thought.
Well, we see these characters, Arthur and Freddy, this couple. Why do you love those characters so much and their relationship?
I mean, I like the honesty and friction of it, of I have to look at myself, what it would be like to live with a writer, which must be very unpleasant. But it must have its joys, right?
And the first book told the story of Arthur Less accepting invitations to literary events around the world, a book that sort of ridiculed middle age and Americans travelling, and Arthur's concern about turning 50. You've now passed that milestone. I wanted to ask you, how was it?
It happened in the pandemic, so it was a lot of group Zoom calls that we all remember for those birthdays that were just awful, and I had a lot of Negronis. I was in Liguria in Italy. And
in this book, you've turned the action to America.
Yeah.
We see Arthur going on a road trip around the US to attend literary events. Why America this time?
It was, once I thought of writing with Arthur Less again, instantly it was obvious it would be an American road trip, because the first is a trip around the world. An American road trip, it's easy because you know when the book is going to end. The reader does. You get to the Atlantic or the Pacific, and it's time to wrap up. So it's a natural sort of structure. Okay,
and then what are you saying about America and Less's feelings of being out of place in all these thoroughly American settings like the TV bar, the wheat field, the church?
I'm saying most people I know don't know what American really means. I think from the outside we look like these flag-waving maniacs, but most of us realize that an entire continent deciding it's going to be a cohesive country is a very strange idea that hasn't really worked out perfectly.
You mentioned you went on a 6-week road trip to drive through the rural areas of the Deep South for this book. Tell us what it was like.
I was very afraid, honestly, because it feels like a dangerous place, certainly politically, but also as a gay man going there. My mother, who's from the South, was worried for me. And so she taught me I had to say sir and ma'am to everybody, and I would put on a false accent.
And did you feel uncomfortable? What was the welcome like for you?
I was never made to feel uncomfortable. Everyone instantly knew I was gay, even though I had a disguise for myself.
What was your disguise?
It was like a baseball cap and like those sunglasses that only like straight American men wear that wrap all the way around, or like at a car rally, and t-shirt and shorts, things I dress like this, you know? And people knew I was gay. They had no problem with it. they thought I was funny. I was welcomed into very rural bars, but I bought everyone drinks. You know, I'm unprepossession in a bar, you know.
And there's the moment in the book that I think is something that actually happened to you in real life, where someone in a bar turned to you and turned to Arthur and said, so what's it like to be gay? That was in Montana, I think you said.
Yes.
Tell us about that. That happened to you.
That was shocking, because Montana was a long time ago for me, and I'd moved from New York City. And so it never occurred to me that I would meet someone who hadn't met a gay person or thought they hadn't met a gay person before. And I remember having to say, I think it's like anything else, but it made me rethink how to present myself, that I was representing a group of people to everyone I met, and it hadn't occurred to me before.
And I wanted to ask you, a recent survey shows that public support for same-sex marriage and non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ plus Americans has fallen, even though the overall share remains high. This is a survey by the Public Religion Research Institute. I wanted to ask you what your reaction is to that.
That sounds about right. I mean, I remember a few years ago, a lot of friends of mine were talking about how now certainly gay white men have a position of privilege in the United States. And I said, well, just wait around. They'll come for us pretty soon. I'm old enough to have watched it go up and down. And I'm also secure that it's heading in the right direction. But we've moved back because of this new presidential race. I think a lot of states and state representatives have gone after books, especially for children. That's the new excuse, is that children shouldn't be around drag queens.
And you're spending a lot of time in Italy. How does that compare to your experience in America as a gay man?
As a gay man, in Italy, you can't really walk around as a gay man. It doesn't exist, okay. You know, particularly in that way. So I don't have that expectation. But I otherwise live in San Francisco, where children do hang out with drag queens. Like, that was the normal and lovely part of childhood. So I adapt to where I am. I'm very used to that.
Okay, well, let's go back to the book. In the sequel, we see Arthur with a pretty good-looking life. Work is okay. He's been asked to judge a fancy literary prize. He's in love with a younger man. And Freddy, who narrates the book. There are scenes in the book about how difficult it is to live with an author who's in the middle of writing. Is there a lot of drama when you write?
I am sure there is, because it's in the book, but I forget about it. And I do remember I told my partner, Enrico, after I finished the book, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm done now. It's your turn. It's mostly just so self-centered, or centered on the book, which looks like being self-centered because no one else can see the book. So it just looks like spending time by yourself.
Your novels have always been critically acclaimed, though, whether you've felt confident about your writing or not. It's 20 years since 2004's The Confessions of Max Tivoli, which read like a Victorian equivalent of the Benjamin Button story of a man aging backwards, and 2008's The Story of the Marriage. That was a critical success as well. Do you feel a bit more relaxed about writing now that you're a Pulitzer Prize winner?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the best thing that happened. And that's part of why I wrote a sequel. I thought, I guess I can write anything I want now. I don't have to worry. I mean, I guess one worries as an artist about anything. But so now I'm writing a new book. That's another comedy. And I'm just enjoying myself.
Which is the main thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? You said last time that Less was inspired by Colette's novel, Cherie. Tell us a bit more about that. What did you like about it?
I'm charmed you remember that. I had always loved Cherie, and my idea was I thought I could update it as a gay story. It wouldn't take very much at all, because this idea of a 53-year-old courtesan who's playing around, as what they call in Italian, a navescuola, with a 20-year-old, teaching him the ropes of the love life, and then realizes he's actually the love of her life, how awful that is. Seemed like it would translate easily, but it only did as a comedy.
And now, Andrew, are you ready to let go of Arthur Less, say goodbye to him?
Certainly for now.
Okay, well, let's finish then with some of your cultural picks of the moment. You've been
Okay.
traveling a lot, so I'm sure you've got some interesting things for us. We're going to start with Madonna's Celebration tour. I went to see her in Paris. I guess you've been.
I saw her in San Francisco. It was fantastic. I mean, what did you think of it?
I felt like I'd never seen anything like it. I was so surprised.
What surprised you?
I think it was, I just didn't expect it to be so long. It was a real show, and I really felt that she was amazing. I don't want to say for her age, but I was just so impressed.
But also for her age, because I think I saw her 5 years ago when she did those smaller shows, and she had a little trouble moving around the stage. She'd had an accident, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And so none of those problems this time. She gave us everything we wanted, you know, and because every other show she'd always been promoting a new album, and not everyone is really interested in Madonna's new album.
We're definitely not interested in Madonna's
You
new
know,
album.
so this was really, she finally gave us what we wanted.
Yeah, all her past hits. Okay, tell us now about a blockbuster film that you picked for us.
Dune. I saw it in the best possible way, the second part, which was in Los Angeles with a writer friend, Michael Chabon, in IMAX. And we're both such nerds, and we both remember reading the book when we were kids and watching the original movie, which I still love, and we had such a good time.
Okay, and I know you live part of the time in Italy, so you've chosen an Italian film for us to end with.
Capitano. It's not released in the United States, and it was one of the finalists for Best Foreign Film for the Oscars, and it is the best foreign film, with all due respect to France. It's an incredible story of young men from Senegal making their way. It's the story before the boats. We all know the story of the boats heading to Italy, but the story of how they get to those boats is unbelievable.
Okay, well, we're going to leave you with Io Capitano. Less is Lost is out in France now. Andrew Sean Greer, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you. And thanks for watching. See you next time.
Il y a beaucoup de personnes, il y a des vies, il y a des enfants. Seydou, waaw lu xew? Dama ragal duma gisati sama yaay. Dama bëggoon a gis sama yaay ne ko mu baal ma àq. Dama namm sama yaay. Mu baal ma àq te yàlla tax. Yeah, Capitano!